Wow, dude. Do we buy tickets inside or?
Yeah. This is the Will call on that line.
Okay. In this line?
This one here?
The will call. Somebody's will.
What's it do?
Give my shirt. I got paint on it. I was so sad I went to put it on. I was like, oh, dude.
Oh, from the other day?
Yeah, I was like, oh, I fucked it up. Yeah?
Gotcha.
We're here, dude. Here we go.
Tell you about an extraordinarily brave woman who will be remembered by history as one of the greatest people of our time. Much like Hillary Clinton, she's a mother who has risen to the ranks of Congress. And like Barack Obama, she's an African American who knows too well what racism does to people and how it can inflict a pain too deep to put into words. But unlike either of them, she poses a real threat to the war hawks and to the lobbyists who have brought the very people who are supposed to represent the needs of the citizens of this country. While it's obvious we all want change, politicians need to do more than just use the word as a campaign slogan. Even with the majority of seats in Congress, have you noticed that there has been virtually no challenge to the kidnapping of habeas corpus? No challenge to the unprecedented amount of executive power granted to the president after 9/11? No challenge to the wiretapping of American people? No challenge to the fact that not one WMD was found in Iraq. We don't need change, we need a challenger. I'm happy to say that we have one hell of a challenger here with us tonight. Cynthia McKinney is currently running for President of the United States for the Green Party. In '92, Cynthia made history when she became the first African-American woman to represent Georgia in the House of Representatives. In '91, after Cynthia spoke on the floor of the Georgia House of Representatives against George Bush Sr., his bombing of Baghdad, her colleagues actually walked out on her. While in the U.S. Congress, Cynthia won recognition as an outspoken leader for human rights, an advocate for peace, and a determined voice for justice. She continues to speak out against the current administration's occupation of Iraq. In a brave move few would have the guts to attempt, she demanded that the Pentagon explain how it lost over $2.3 trillion in untrackable transactions. To this day, she has not received an answer. Well, if you don't believe me, take a look. Give us a second here. To the next Green Party president for the presidency, Cynthia McKinney. Woo! My goodness. No wonder I'm not up there in that place. It's a bunch of liars, cheats, thieves, scoundrels, and we're supposed to call them our leaders. Thank you. The information here has just been fantastic. It's been a long way for me to get here. Yesterday, we drove 19 hours so I could get the flight to get here. And then when we got to the airport today, there was no pilot for the plane. But now we know that there was no pilot for the plane on September 11th, and the plane still flew. But anyway, I eventually got here,
And I'm happy to be here and share a few minutes with you today and then again tomorrow. What I have to say is that Dr. Jones and Mr. Gage and all of the members of the 911 Truth Movement, the new organization of young people called We Are Change, I love you, are just absolutely fantastic. I mean, can you imagine on the 21st of this month, just a few days ago, I was in New York City, and it's the first time I ever had an opportunity to go to the Audubon Ballroom. February 21st, 1965, Malcolm X was murdered. And we really don't know what happened on that day. In November 1963, we had a president who was murdered. And we really don't know what happened on that day. In April 1968, Martin Luther King, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was murdered. And everything we know about the murder of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. is a lie that has been told to us by these people who sit in high places in Washington, D.C. So the worst thing you can do is to put somebody who comes from a background like mine in a place like that, because I'm not afraid to speak truth to power, and I'm not afraid to look with my eyes and my and then, of course, you're not supposed to do that. And from the government's own documents, from the counterintelligence program, that entire COINTELPRO era, we know that the one thing they feared more than anything else was for black people and white people to get together, people of all persuasions to get together and move our country forward. So who would have thought that the main mechanism to bring us all together to move our country forward would have been their criminal behavior on September 11th. Now, when I was in Congress from 1993 to 2003, I was elected to go to Congress by people in Georgia's rural Black Belt. People who had not yet experienced the fruits of the 1964 Civil Rights Act. They had not yet experienced the fruit of the 65 Voting Rights Act, because there was a time warp in rural Georgia. It's a Confederate state, for crying out loud. Folks don't cotton to change very kindly. And so they were afraid even of what kind of change I might bring into that district. But the kind of change that we took into Georgia's old 11th district was the kind of change that moved that portion of my home state out of the 18th century and into the 20th century. That's what we did. But even that was so threatening to the powers that be that they had to dismantle the whole district. And so, from the very moment that I was sworn in, because folks recognized that if I could go into the Georgia House of Representatives and challenge George Herbert Walker Bush about raining down bombs on Baghdad, that maybe I might just do that everywhere I was. of Georgia to the good old boys that run the state.